Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to International Film Festival ETIUDA&Anima. My name is Paulina Pikiewicz and I will be moderator of today's panel. We're having Marlies Smeenge, hello, from Netherlands. And
Hello.
we will be talking about your documentary movie, a Ballet of Service, which tells us a story about a Butler Academy, really unique place. You had the chance to visit this place, and I was really interested. How did you come up across this story? What was your motivation, and how did you get into that place?
Well, I actually started off with a short interview I read somewhere online, and there was this man who said that he'd been taking care of, I think it was his deceased partner, his sick partner or his sick mother for quite a long time. And that gave him a lot of purpose in his life. And then the partner or mother had passed away, which had been very hard for him because his sole purpose in life, which was taking care of this person, was gone all of a sudden. And he had really spiraled into a very negative lifestyle where he started to do drugs and drink a lot, and his life really went down the drain. And in the article said, however, I've found a new path. I'm going to study to be a butler so that I can professionally take care of people. And that really struck a chord with me because, first of all, I didn't even know that the profession of butler was a thing that was still happening. And then secondly, I was very surprised that a thing such as a Butler Academy even existed in this day and age. And thirdly, I was very surprised to find out that there was a Butler Academy in the Netherlands because me being Dutch, I know that beyond our borders, we aren't really known to be the most polite people on earth. So I was very fascinated by all of this. And I decided to pay the Butler Academy that I found online a visit. And the first time I came there, I parked my battered old car and there was a butler that came outside and he held up an umbrella over my head because it was raining, and he said, "Welcome, Miss Smeenge, to the International Butler Academy." And I was quite shocked that he even knew my name. And then he took me inside. He placed me on a couch in front of a blazing fire and asked me if I would like a refreshment. And I was blown away. I mean, you've seen the documentary, you know what the place looks like. And I felt like I was walking into the private house of somebody belonging to the British royal family. So sitting there waiting for my refreshment to be served, which turned out to be a silver platter with a Villeroy and Bock cup of tea and a crystal glass of sparkling water and a tiny slice of lemon in a glass thingy that enabled me to press the lemon into my drink. I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, wow, I need to make a documentary here. So yeah, I did.
Okay, so you were at first astonished by this place, but I interpret your documentary movie. It is made in a humoristic way, but at the same time, I interpret this movie like a critique of this place. So, what was this time when you starting to look at this place in more, critique way of seeing that place?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I critique it. I would more so say that I was fascinated by it and that I started wondering why people would live such an altruistic lifestyle. So it was more of a curiosity in the sense that I personally wouldn't want to live this type of life than it was criticism. And I think that started right away because I personally couldn't imagine living a life where my highest goal would to sort of be to make myself invisible in order to be able to serve somebody else to the fullest. And then again, I mean, the butlers themselves also sometimes when they were doing something, we would film it and afterwards they would be like, yeah, this is interesting, right? Isn't it? Because they also knew and understood that people that weren't in the butler profession found the type of things that they did a little typical sometimes. such as ironing a newspaper, the whole Ballet of Service thing where they walk and serve synchronized, and there's a lot of things that you don't see in day-to-day society, which they do because it is a part of their job. And they themselves understood how special and interesting that was, which made it possible for me to show it in a way that, in a realistic way, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you call it, because the title of the movie is The Ballet of Service, and we can see literally how butlers dancing a ballet. But could you describe to our viewers how do you what does it mean, ballet, from your perspective as a filmmaker?
Well, so the Ballet of Service means two things. Firstly, which is something I don't think you will know after watching the documentary, the way in which they serve the food during the formal dinner, walking out and crossing each other, and all these different walking patterns, and the synchronized serving and the taking off the cloches and everything. All of that is what you call the Ballet of Service in the butler profession. But then I also felt like everything they do is a ballet. Everything is choreographed. There is rules behind every movement they make. And so for me, everything they did was a ballet of service. And then also during the filming, I felt that what we were doing as a film crew was a ballet around the ballet of service, because we were constantly trying to not be in their way. Pretty much everything we saw there in the building was worth a lot of money and quite breakable. So we were trying to not touch anything with our boom pole. There were all these chandeliers hanging down that were super expensive. But I think hearing the term the Ballet of Service for the first time, I was very fascinated by that. And then, well, as I said, everything they do is a ballet.
Yeah, that's really interesting in your movie, that we can actually see how they rehearse this ballet before big evening, which we can see in the end of your movie. And I was curious as well, what are the visitors, who are the guests of the Butler's Academy? Because in the end we can see people who actually are there for a supper, and they are also viewers or spectators of this beautiful ballet. So could you tell us something more about this guest of Butler's Academy?
Yeah, so due to Corona, it has changed a little bit. Quite a short while ago. But what they normally do is that they give people the chance to organize events at the Butler Academy. So sometimes they do weddings and baptisms and things like that, or charity events. And this was a group of people. I don't exactly remember where they were from. I think it was some type of society. I don't really know what they were. And they paid a certain amount of money per person to have a butler experience evening. So they had multiple courses, and they were served a drink before they entered, and they got a tour around the building. So, I mean, it's not cheap to do this, but it's also not as expensive as it would be if you would do this in a super fancy hotel. So it's a fun and classy night out for people who can afford it. And that's also, I mean, the Butler Academy has a huge building, and the students do pay a fee to attend, but the Butler Academy needs other ways to make money, and this is one of them. And it also gives the students a chance to practice before they actually need to do it in front of an actual queen or royalty or people that are their bosses. So it's kind of a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really interesting that Butler's Academy actually can provide you that small pleasure, that you can feel like a member of royal family when you can be there on the event in Butler's Academy, and every butler and people are going around you and gives you this refreshment as you were describing us. That's really interesting that we just you just need to pay some extra money just to feel like a royal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about people who actually decided to take that kind of job, to be a butler. So can you tell us something more about people we can see in a documentary? We can actually meet one girl. She's an immigrant from Thailand. I'm not sure. Could you say something more about her situation and maybe situation of other people who decided to take that job?
Yeah, sure. So all the people that are seen in documentary are not immigrants. They just came to the Butler Academy to attend the course, and after that they will go back to either the country that they live in or the country where they will start to work. So the Thai girl that you're referring to was actually going to go back to Thailand to work there. I think that the backgrounds of all the butlers are as diverse as the countries that they came from and the ages they have. There was one elderly lady who had been a lawyer her entire life, and she had retired and her husband had died. And she had been thinking about what she wanted to do for the remaining part of her life. And then she said, well, I mean, I have a boat. I do a lot of going out on my boat, and I would actually really like to do super luxurious getaways for people that are about my age. But in order to do that, I really want to know how to give extremely luxurious service. So that's why she came there. But there were also students that already had very high-ranked, well-paying jobs in private households in the Middle East or in five-star hotels around the world. And they said in order to be able to advance their position and to get a better job, they needed to come to a place like the Butler Academy to study more, which is what they did. So there were people that have a long history in hospitality. There were also people that didn't have any history in hospitality at all. And as a diploma from this specific school is very internationally well recognized, it is internationally very well recognized. So coming there means that you really got something to show for the type of experience you have if you finish it with high remarks, with high grades. So yeah, there's a lot of different stories behind all the students.
Okay. At the beginning, you said that you cannot imagine yourself in Butler's Academy. You cannot imagine to take that job. Could you explain us why?
Well, I mean, my life and my profession are pretty much the opposite of being a butler, I would say. Me being a director, I'm usually the person that tells people what to do instead of taking orders from other people. So I think that would give you a hint. There is something in the butler profession. Well, as I said in the beginning, the whole needing to be invisible and totally giving your life to somebody else. I think I could be able to do that for a short period of time, and I think I would feel very fulfilled by it. But to do it my entire life would be quite intense, I guess. And also, you don't really have that much of a private life anymore because you're working all the time for your boss or your principal. You need to be on call always, always, always. But there is a part of their job that I really do recognize in my work as a director is the fact that they are very focused on details and on perfection and on trying to remember everything that happened and everything everybody said, which is actually quite an interesting parallel between my job and theirs, as the jobs are so different. But really, I really felt like sometimes we were paying attention to the same type of things, which was very funny because our professions are so different.
Yeah, thank you for that. That you noticed that connection between your professions. Last question, I just wanted to ask you: have you ever had the chance to work as a waitress or as a to be a servant of in other jobs?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, like pretty much everybody, I think. When I was still studying, I was also waitressing in a restaurant, and then later I worked in a juice bar, and then later I worked in a lunch cafe. So I've done quite a lot of waitressing in my life. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, can you that experience could be similar to the butler's work, or was completely different?
I think the level of luxuriousness that we were supposed to give to the people that came to the cafes and the restaurants I worked in was way not at the level where the butlers are. I mean, I wasn't in a full dress suit. And I mean, you're trying to give people in the restaurant a personal type of service, but it is not as personal as it is when people pay €1,000 just to sit at a table. But I can really relate to the 15 to 18 hour long days, your feet being sore, the amount of tiredness that comes over your body when you work in hospitality for so long. So there were actually a lot of things from my time as a waitress which made it easier for me to connect with what they were doing. But I mean, being a butler is a 7-day-a-week job. It doesn't stop. And it's not just the serving out food, it's so much more. It's knowing that the birthday of the best friend of your principal's coming up and that you need to get a present ready. It's having his suits pressed. It's you're managing a lot of things. So there's so much more that goes into being a butler than there is into working in a restaurant or a cafe.
Yeah, but still, butler. There's one rule that butler don't share his opinion, his or her opinion,
Yeah.
and he or she has to be polite, and
Oh, yeah.
every topic is interesting to her or him. So
Yeah.
that's what, when we hear that, it gives us, it sounds really weird to us when we hear that.
Well, I mean, if you work in a restaurant, I mean, everybody that worked in restaurants or cafes once had very horrible people that were super mean and asked way too much and were super rude to them. But then there's always this older waiter or waitress that tells you, but the customer is king. It doesn't matter how unfriendly they are. You just need to stay calm, cool, and collected and give them what they want within reasonability, of course. So, yeah. But it didn't go as far as we don't care about your opinion. That's something that is a little bit more related to the butler profession, I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Marlies, for our conversation and for your documentary, The Ballet of Service, which you will have the chance to see on ETIUDA&Anima Festival. We greatly recommend you that, and see you someday, maybe in Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the documentary.
Bye.
Bye.